Realism is the depiction of subjects as they appear in everyday life, without embellishment or interpretation. It emphasizes the harsh and sometimes ugly truth. It began in France in the 1850s and reached its European popularity in the 1870s and 80s. Its popularity grew with the introduction of photography, which created a desire for people to produce that which looks objectively real. Also affecting its rise was reaction against Romanticism, an interest in scientific method, the systematizing of the study of documentary history, and the influence of radical philosophy. George Eliot introduced realism into England, and William Dean Howells introduced it into the United States. In American literature, the term realism encompasses the period of time from the Civil War to the turn of the century. As the United States grew rapidly after the Civil War, the increasing rates of democracy and literacy, the rapid growth in industrialism and urbanization, an expanding population base due to immigration, and a relative rise in middle-class affluence provided a fertile literary environment for readers interested in understanding these rapid shifts in culture. The two main goals of realism are truth and accuracy, often concerning the representation of middle-class life. Realism is often compared to naturalism, the next literary period. The difference between realism and naturalism is hard to define, and the two terms are often used interchangeably. The distinction lies in the fact that realism is concerned directly with what is absorbed by the senses. Naturalism, a term more properly applied to literature, attempts to apply scientific theories to art. The realists tended to downplay plot in favor of characters, and to concentrate on middle-class life and preoccupations, avoiding larger, more dramatic issues. Complex ethical choices are often the subject. Diction is natural vernacular, not heightened or poetic. Tone may be comical, satirical, or matter-of-fact.
Realism art. During this time, art was referred to as realist. Realist simply meant that ugly objects or figures are represented as opposed to those considered beautiful. Realist attempted to portray the lives, appearances, problems, customs of the middle and lower classes, of the unexceptional, the ordinary, the humble, rather than the stiff, conventional pictures favored by upper-class society. Advocates of the style were no longer preoccupied with expectations of academies or other art institutions because there was an opposition to the traditional approach to neoclassicism and the drama of Romanticism. Realist art normally alluded to a social, political, or moral message. Realism set a goal that did not imitate past artistic achievements, but the truthful and accurate depiction of the models that nature and contemporary life had offered to the artist. The new idea was that ordinary people and everyday activities are worthy subjects for art. The best way to describe the art would be to say that the scenes painted were drawn exactly as they appeared. The realist. The realist refers to a group of international artists in Paris which begin to devise new methods of pictorial representation. They are focused on scientific concepts of vision and the study of optical effects of light. The realists express both the taste for democracy and rejection of the inherent old artistic tradition. The realists felt that painters should work from the life around them. Examples of realist artists are Gustave Courbet and Thomas Cowperthwaite Eakins. Gustave Courbet was the foremost realist painter of the mid-19th century France. Gustave Courbet was born June 10, 1819, and died December 31, 1877. He went to Paris in 1839 and worked at the studio of Steuben and Hesse. Because he was an independent spirit, he soon left, preferring to develop his own style by studying Spanish, Flemish, and French painters and painting copies of their work. His birthplace was a favorite subject in his paintings. Courbet was a painter of figurative compositions, landscapes, and seascapes. Courbet believed the realist artist's mission was the pursuit of truth, which would help erase social contradictions and imbalances. Courbet realism entailed spontaneous and rough handling of paint, suggesting direct observation by the artist while portraying the irregularities in nature. Courbet depicted the harshness in life, and in doing so challenged contemporary academic ideas of art. One of Courbet's most important works is A Burial at Omens, a canvas recording an event which he witnessed in September of 1848. Courbet's painting of the funeral of his grand uncle became the first masterpiece in the realist style. People who had attended the funeral were used as models for the painting. Towards the end of 1860s, Courbet painted a series of increasingly erotic works such as The Origin of the World, depicting female genitalia, and Sleep, featuring two women in bed. While banned from public display, the works only served to increase his infamy. During 1870, Courbet established a federation of artists for the free and uncensored expansion of art. Another artist of the time period was Thomas Eakins. Thomas Eakins was born and lived most of his life in Philadelphia. He studied drawing and anatomy at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts and attended courses in anatomy and dissection at Jefferson Medical College. Eakins studied art in Europe from 1866 to 1870, most notably in Paris, but he wasn't impressed by what he perceived as the classical pretensions of the French Academy. For the length of his professional career, Eakins' art depicted his life, choosing most of his subjects as people of his hometown Philadelphia. He painted several hundred portraits. An important part of Eakins' life was his work as a teacher. As an instructor, he was a great presence in American art. Eakins' attitude toward realism in painting and his desire to explore the heart of American life proved influential. He taught students such as African-American painter Henry Ossawa Tanner. Today, he is regarded as one of the most important American artists of any period.
Samuel Clemens, better known by his pen name of Mark Twain, was born November 30th, 1835. He grew up in the Mississippi River frontier town of Hannibal, Missouri. Twain traveled around the country as a journalist, settling in places such as New York, New Orleans, and Carson City. He began his career writing light, humorous verse, but evolved into a grim, almost profane chronicler of the vanities, hypocrisies, and murderous acts of mankind. Twain's style, based on vigorous, realistic, colloquial American speech, gave American writers a new appreciation of their national voice. Twain was the first major author to come from the interior of the country, and he captured its distinctive, humorous slang and iconoclasm. For Twain and other American writers of the late 19th century, realism was not merely a literary technique. It was a way of speaking truth and exploding worn-out conventions. Twain is best known for his works Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Mary Ann Evans, better known as George Eliot, was an English novelist born November 22, 1819. She used a male pen name to ensure her works would be taken seriously. Eliot worked as an editor and writer in London until she took up writing fiction. Her first work was a collection of stories and sketches about the people of Warwickshire, the town of her youth. This collection, called Scenes from Clerical Life, is an ideal example of realist literature, as it focuses on the commonplaces of everyday life amongst the middle class. Eliot gained much fame and recognition in her time, especially after the publishing of her most famous novel, Middlemarch. Subtitled A Study of Provincial Life, the work has a multiple plot with a large cast of characters, supporting the genre style of exchanging a complex plot for highly developed characters.
Realism is not a term strictly applicable to music. There are realistic operas created in the last decade of the 19th century in Italy, but it is their plots rather than their music which can be said to participate in the movement towards realism. Since untexted music is not usually representational, it cannot be said to be more or less realistic. Realism had more of an effect in theater. Realism maintained the strength of such elements of drama as tension and focus while maintaining an audience's direct connection in relation to the situation and characters. They were a reflection of themselves. It is the art that has helped and led into method acting. Realism takes human morals and emotional inner thoughts and beliefs to bring about the most of the conflict it presents.